Hey, Katya.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Yeah. Well, it's not snowing today like it was yesterday, so that's a step up in my world.
We're not. Ours is coming. Right the day that I'm supposed to be putting a fence in my backyard.
Nice. I was out on the auction yard and we were unloading a full semi load yesterday, and it was dumping snow, but it was 40 degrees, so it was just like mucky and muddy and cold, miserably cold.
Fun times.
I know. All right. A little digital plumbing?
Digital plumbing. Let's get into it.
Heck yeah. But first,
So,
a question
yeah,
of the week.
right. The super secret question. So,
Dun dun dun.
I know that you're a fan of Taylor Swift,
Obviously.
obviously. Would you consider yourself a super fan?
Not super fan, but I would definitely consider myself a Swiftie, like for sure.
Yeah. Cool. I know that you and I both appreciate her marketing expertise. So the question for today is, what is your favorite like marketing campaign or initiative that she did to promote her music or an album or a concert or something like that? Because she does some clever stuff, right?
She does a lot of clever stuff. From a marketing and user generated content perspective, the amount of talk that happens leading up to any kind of drop, a new album, a new video, like fans go crazy and start to do their own thing, and it takes over the entire internet. And when that happens, my entire algorithm becomes Taylor Swift, and I'm like, I am not looking for these Easter eggs, but I'm very interested in everybody else looking for the Easter eggs. So I think it's the community that she's built around her music and her entire brand is just a fascinating study of what works and what doesn't.
Nice. Do you think it's a lot of her? Do you think, I mean, I'm sure it's a team effort, but do you think a lot of it comes from her specifically? Or does she have people just doing the stuff for her?
I mean, I think there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but I do think a lot of it is just her brain and how it works. Because if you didn't have a leader like that,
Hmm.
it wouldn't work. So there you go. There's my Taylor Swift moment of the day.
Okay, cool. Well, then we're going to talk about Google Analytics 4 today, which is a tool that we both are into every day, at least a bit. So,
Right?
a interesting, huge topic, but we'll kind of trim it down, hopefully, to the high level stuff and just talk about some best practices and how to use it in lots of different ways for different kinds of businesses.
Cool. I love it. So, do we start with a really quick high overview? What is GA4?
Yeah, it's a free analytics tool. You install it on your website or your app, and it tracks event data from people visiting pages, visiting screens, clicking on buttons, filling out forms,
All
doing
about the
purchases.
user behavior, like
Yeah,
any
user
user
behavior.
behavior you can track on your site. That's
Exactly.
GA4.
And it's kind of connected to Google's ecosystem, all of their anonymous data that they have on everybody on the planet. So you also can pull in things like demographics and age groups,
A
things
little
like
bit
that.
less than you used to be able to, though, right? Like there are
Right.
definitely some stipulations and guidelines, restrictions based on some of the new changes to law and recording.
Yeah, they've made a lot of changes to how they collect data and how they retain it and how they to keep it private.
But
So they
still,
definitely do.
GA4 is like this huge, powerful analytics tool. And it's a little confusing at first, but once you dive into it, there's just so much information that you can use.
Hmm.
So, quick elephant in the room, like this, oh man, how long has it been? 2020, is that when they rolled out GA4 maybe? So it's been
Hmm.
a couple years, but I feel like there's still little animosity there. And we went from universal analytics into GA4 and like what that looked like and moving into an event-based tracking system and how you how you track your analytics is different.
It was a bit of a rough transition for a lot of people. I mean, Universal Analytics had been around for so long, and thankfully they launched GA4 while Universal Analytics was still active, so you could kind of run them concurrently for at least I think it was 2 or 3 year overlap. So you could start collecting data on both platforms. But I worked for a big client that, lived and breathed data. It was really hard because the data never matched up.
Yeah, it
So
didn't
you
match
had
up,
to,
and the comparisons, my gosh, those first couple years, the comparisons were like pulling teeth, and you're like, okay, I did a data dump, and now I have to go back and look at this thing, and I need to pull it over here, or I have Universal up in this window and GA4 up in this window, and there's just like a lot of stuff going on, and it was a little bit frustrating, and I'm sure there was a better way to have like implemented that than I was doing with my clients, but that ship sailed. So like we're so far past that, and now we can just talk GA4.
yeah. And I don't think it was you. I think GA4, it was a little bit rough when it came out. It was such a different way of collecting data. Like a lot of people, myself included, kind of hated it when it first came out. And,
So
where
are
are all
you
my reports that
saying
I
that you
use?
come to love it?
I think love is a strong word. I
A
think that
love-hate relationship.
I think it's probably the best tool out there for website analytics, and it's definitely gotten a lot better and continues to improve. But yeah, right out of the gate, it was like this is unusable, which I don't think that was the case. I think that's just what they thought because they were so used to Universal.
Yeah, it's that feeding the Google machine, right? Like it is the best tool. It's the most robust tool out there, and you have to do it because that's what's there, which is crazy that one company has such a hold on something like everyone's website data. Wild.
Yeah, yeah. I'd actually be curious to know what people think of what other tools are out there that maybe can compete. I know Adobe has one that's pretty. I hear it's pretty decent, but I mean, I've always just been a Google user when it came to analytics.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how you actually set up GA4. And I think we'll link all of this in the show notes,
Yes, yes.
in the description and whatever. But let's talk about installing that script for your website and where you put it and all of that kind of jazz.
So if you've watched our previous episode on Google Tag Manager, then you have a very quick and easy way to install GA4 because it's just a Google tag that you add in your Google Tag Manager container. And all you got to do is plug in your measurement ID that you get from your property and your
So the
account.
first thing you do is go to analytics. I like this movement, analytics.google.com, and you can set up a property for your website. Then once you have that set up, you're going to be able to go in and find that measurement ID, is what you're saying. And then it's
Yes.
super easy from the Google Tag Manager side. Like it's such a built-in because they're both Google products. You basically just click like, I would like to add this, and it walks you through the whole process. Super simple.
Yep. Yep, exactly. And it's literally like a few clicks in Google Tag Manager, as long as you have your ID. If you don't have Google Tag Manager, it's not super hard. You just have to have access to your website's code because it's a script that you have to install on every page of your website that you want
Right.
to track. And that's another benefit to GTM is if you have pages that you don't want to be tracking Google Analytics on, you can set up those triggers in GTM pretty easily, as opposed to a website where you have to kind of add some conditional logic or some things can get a little funky. So,
Sweet.
and to note there, in terms of streams, one Google Analytics property can actually have multiple streams. So if you have multiple websites that you want to collect the GA4 data from, you can add multiple streams and it'll combine that data in your reporting. Same thing for like a mobile app. You can pull in engagement data from an app using something like Firebase, which is like another Google product for collecting data through mobile apps. So you can combine lots of different platforms into one property.
Yeah, and that actually is a benefit of GA4, right? Like in Universal, it was a lot harder to do cross-domain tracking, and GA4 really improved that. So a
Totally.
lot better and a lot easier. Cool. So let's chat about why you would use GA4.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a business or a nonprofit that has any interest in making data-driven decisions, then you need to have the data to back it up. So this tool is free. It collects hundreds of different dimensions and metrics and demographics and engagement data and behavior and things like that. And if you know how to dig into those reports, you can really see what's moving the needle, as you say, for your business.
Yeah. And we talked about it in episode 2, but even if you're not planning to use that data right now, or you don't have time to dig into GA4, or you don't have the expertise or any of that, get it on your website now and start tracking the data, because once you decide that you want to use the data or have the opportunity to make those data-driven decisions, then the data will be there. And if you don't put the script on your site, you can't go back in time. Like, it's from now forward once you put it on the site.
Right. Yes.
Cool.
All right. So, there's lots of things that go into setting up a GA4 property once you've got that stream ID. There's all kinds of configurations and admin settings. There's probably lots of good guides out there that we can link to. But some of the things that you should make sure you do right after you set up your stream to just get the most out of the platform. There's probably 4 or 5 things. So one is the data retention settings, like we talked about earlier.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Google, it collects so much data that for, fairly, they don't want to store all of that forever. Like, it costs them money. They have data centers that they need to pay for. And so they have retention settings set to 2 months, meaning when you're looking at like custom reports in your GA4, you can only go back 2 months in time. Well, for any business, you at least want to look year over year. I mean, that's really the biggest comparison. Yeah. So luckily you can go into your admin settings and then data retention, and you can set that to 14 months. So at least you can see year over year plus a couple of months. And then if you're paying for Google Analytics, they do have a paid product called Analytics 360. You can expand that to 50 months.
Interesting. I have never used the paid version. Like, the normal tool for most of my clients is robust enough that I haven't used that before. I know if you get into like bigger companies, that wouldn't be the case, and you'd probably want something closer to that 50-month period. But for the average Joe, I would say just getting that normal Google Analytics on your site is probably enough.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have worked with 150, 200 clients over the past 10 years. I think I can only think of one client that actually had the need to pay for the 360 version. So really, you don't really need it.
Sweet. What other things should you do after setting it up?
So there's one thing that's in GA4 that's a little funky. It has what's called enhanced measurements. And so, we talked about before in GA4, everything is an event. And so it also tracks other events by default, things like clicks, external link clicks, and file downloads and things like that. And one of the enhanced measurements is form submissions, which it can send an event when somebody starts filling out a form, and then when they submit it. The tricky part is sometimes you can submit a form and it's actually not being submitted. Like if I didn't fill out a required field and then throws an error or something like that, it still sends the form submission event to GA4. So
interesting.
What we recommend to all of our clients is you turn that one off. It's in the admin settings under the stream settings, I believe. You turn form tracking off, and then you send a custom event using GTM, of course, super easy. When somebody actually fills out a form, like when they actually reach like a thank you page or a confirmation page of some kind.
Interesting. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but also not very intuitive, or like you wouldn't know that unless you really took the time to look at like actual form submission numbers versus what Google is telling you to find that discrepancy. So good shout out.
Right. Yeah. And the only real downside is that you might have some duplicate events that come through that aren't real form submissions.
Fair.
I mean, that's really the worst case scenario. So it's not a huge deal, but if you really want accurate tracking, you probably want to do it yourself.
Nice. What about like user access and permissions and property versus account and all the different levels and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Just like any other Google property, you have lots of control over who can access it and what they can access. So you can add other admin users. You can add view-only users where they can literally only see the data, but they can't edit reports at all. So as long as it's a Google account, you have to invite, they have to be like a Google or a Gmail to invite them to it. But you can have multiple users. You can have user groups, tons of control, especially if you're working with other teams and even other people in your same organization.
Nice. And then just paying attention to that like property versus account and what people actually need access to.
That exactly. So we only have user permission levels at the account and property level.
Okay.
What else? Filters. You can filter internal traffic. So if you, as
Get
you know,
rid
as
of
a
your own IP address.
right,
Check, and check.
don't be unnecessarily inflating your client's data because you're clicking their website 50 times a day.
A lot harder if you don't have a static IP address. So,
Yes,
but really
true.
easy if you do have a static IP.
Yeah, yeah. That's usually the only thing that you can filter by is IP addresses.
Yeah. But to your point, don't inflate those numbers just because you have to be on the site doing a bunch of work and like checking things. And if you have the opportunity, take out your own traffic and your clients' own traffic so that they're getting real numbers about people they're serving.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be clear, filtering on the admin side is different than filtering in the reporting side. Filtering on the admin side means that Google never processes that data. Where if you're on the report side, you're filtering based on the data that's already in the property.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's all of the like base level stuff. And
Hmm.
then I would argue, I mean, we talked about it last week in our episode about GTM, but why not set up some of those custom or conversion events so you can start tracking what actually matters?
Yes. At least have a plan for that.
Yeah, maybe
For
not
you.
right out of the gate. It's not the most important, but it does really serve you well. And again, that's another moment where it isn't tracking them until you set it. Like you can't go back in time. So until you set that conversion as an actual conversion event, it's
Hmm.
not going to show up in your analytics, and you can't get that data back if you miss it.
Totally. Yeah. Even if you're setting it as like a key event in the GA4 property, like it's not going to retroactively remember that from previous events.
Right. Okay, I know you really love the like custom reporting side of GA4, but before we dive into that, maybe we just talk about some of those built-in reports that are really good for that like regularly monitoring site performance that we use all the time.
Yeah. And that was one of the major pain points of GA4 when it first came out, is there wasn't a lot of those pre-built reports that people were used to. Now there's quite a few and there's some really good ones. So I'm going to ask you first, what is your most valuable like canned report, one that's not a custom expiration or anything like that?
Yeah. Let's see. Between the two, acquisition reports and pages and screens are probably the ones I dive into most.
Hmm.
I would argue, oh, that's so hard. On the ad side, it's acquisition because I want to know like if my ads are working. And from a like copywriter point of view, I actually care more about the pages and screens and what content is working. So let's say pages and screens is my number one. Just so I can see like what the top performing pages are, if people are staying on the pages, to see like if the content works, if they're bouncing right off of our website, that kind of stuff.
That makes sense. I would probably be the opposite, but that's just because I'm so used to reporting higher level traffic and people are wanting to know, did this come from a specific campaign? Did it come from Google versus Facebook? Did it come from a paid
No, the
ad, like you
acquisition
said?
report is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of time that's tied to key events and things like e-commerce purchases and revenue. You can break it down by that. So that's probably the one that I go to first when I'm looking at, reporting for a client.
That makes sense, where the traffic is actually coming from.
Yeah.
Maybe a quick note on that one. I think a shift from Universal Analytics to GA4 was the direct traffic because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in Universal Analytics, direct traffic was basically you typed in the URL and you knew we knew exactly how you got there. It was a direct insert into the website, and now direct traffic is kind of a catch-all for like unknown sources. Is that true?
Mhm. Yes, that's true. And I think it was either partially that in Universal Analytics, but I feel like in GA4 it's more prevalent to see more like unattributed traffic for whatever reason. I think that's probably because a lot of people use like private browsers like Brave, or they're turning off analytics tracking stuff so Google can't see where that traffic's coming from, or people are sending out email campaigns and they're not adding UTM parameters to their links, so Google's having to guess if it actually came from an email versus an unknown source. So I think the concept of direct traffic is like it's growing in the sense that the consumer base is shifting into a more private kind of
Interesting.
stance in terms of their browsing.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. But yeah,
It's kind of a
definitely
bummer
a
for
good
Mark.
shout out.
Yeah, yeah. It's getting tougher. It's getting tougher to be able to report on data when it's
Yeah,
not
the
falling into the
attribution
right bucket.
stuff, but also I think it's just one of those things that people don't think about because we actually have a lot of opportunity to like put on those UTM parameters in the digital plumbing of everything to like show where your traffic is coming from and actually get
Yeah.
more granular.
So pages and screens, acquisition, two really big ones. One that, as a marketer, if you're into the data, you're looking at those every day.
Yes.
So what other kinds of reports, like canned reports, do you think are important for somebody that's just getting into GA4?
I don't know, probably like the e-commerce side of things makes sense, depending on your business model and seeing what people are buying. I know some people use real-time reporting a lot. That's not one that I necessarily dive a lot into, but I'm sure there's good use cases. I'm sure you have
Yeah.
some examples.
I mean, the only time I've used it is a lot of time for debugging, like making sure that a event fires and that event has a particular parameter attached to it, which you can do that in like GTM preview and GA4 debug. But sometimes when I want to see it in real time from not myself testing, but other people, real people,
Yeah.
I'll go to the real time report. Or like, you launch a campaign at 8 a.m. in the morning and you want to watch and see if it makes a real difference real
What's
time. You
happening?
can
Yeah.
see.
Not even just a campaign, like a digital campaign, but you could also do that with in conjunction with like a live event kind of thing too,
Totally.
and just see if there's any improved or increased traffic. Good Lord, what is this? Can't.
Like,
Can't today. The hand motions are
it's
all
just-
over the place. We're gonna
yeah.
sit on our hands.
The people love them. Keep it going.
I don't know that is true. Okay,
Before
so
we move on, there was a metric that I know that you feel very passionate about.
oh, in those canned reports, yeah. And
Yeah.
and to your point, like I will die on this hill once you get into your like pages and screen or acquisition report. I think one of the most important metrics to look at is not set like number of sessions or back to the universal of like views, but the average session duration tells you so much about how people are using your website, if your content's working, if the page is valuable, if people are continuing to explore the site. So that is probably my number one metric across everything that I do is average session duration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, bummer that there's not like an actual metric for on page or like specific page duration, but I think you can still glean a lot from that average session duration. I still think that if you get to a point where you're seeing like over a minute on set, like I think there's still things that you can find from that in the pages report, but it's actually really valuable when it comes to that acquisition report because that's showing you what your organic direct paid traffic is doing on your site and is a really important thing to be paying attention to.
Which is a great point when you're paying money. Like if you're paying money for Facebook or Google ads and you're seeing that people that come from that source are spending 5 seconds and then bouncing off.
Yes.
You're like, is that really worth the spend?
No, it's not. It's not. Even if you're talking about like a display campaign and people are like, oh, but that's for general awareness. If they get to your site and they're like not finding something they're interested in and are gone after 5 seconds, no, not worth it. And
Yep.
it's a great way to be like, okay, this isn't working, move on, do something else. Put your money where it is working. Find that
Right.
acquisition source that actually makes a difference. Okay, we are like running through things, but we got to keep running. And that means you don't have a lot of time to talk about your favorite thing in the custom reporting, but let's hear it.
Okay, so one of the biggest powers of GA4 are custom explorations. So if you think about
Actually, that might be where all the power is. I know I said go quickly, but custom reports are kind of the thing. So
they're pretty great and they're a little intimidating, but what's nice about them is you can literally start from scratch and say, I want 4 or 5 dimensions. Like I want to know the device category. I want to know what source they came from. I want to know what medium they came from. I want to know what country they came from. And I can have all those in a custom table. And then I can have metrics like sessions, views, purchases, revenue, average session duration, all those. And you can build it all into one table report. And then you can add filters. Like I only want to see organic traffic, or I only want to see direct traffic if you're like, troubleshooting where all the direct traffic is coming from. So huge power in this expiration reporting.
When it comes to the marketing funnel and like actually understanding where that like awareness all the way down to conversion, where your traffic is, the custom reports are so important for that. If you want to make data-driven decisions, you have to get down into those nitty-gritty levels, or you're just making big assumptions, which is great. Like there are some big assumptions you can make and be like, okay, this content's working, this isn't. But to actually be like, here's the funnel that's performing, you got to get granular.
Yeah. Which, you bring up a good point is, I was talking about customer expirations being like a table-based report. That's not the only option. They have timeline reports, and they have what you just mentioned called a user flow report, where you can pick a starting point or you can pick an ending point, and then you can see what pages most people visited to reach that point. And so you can look where are they coming in, where are they dropping off,
Yeah,
and where are they spending the most time. Yeah, it's super helpful for that. So yeah, customer expirations. We could talk about that for 20 minutes. So it's like super powerful. It's really cool.
So in this case, just scratching the surface.
Yes. Other customizations, if you're doing any kind of custom event tracking in GTM and you want to have custom event parameters, like for example, I sent a form submit event, and a custom event parameter would be the form that they submitted, a contact form versus a lead form versus a service request form. You can add those as custom parameters. And anytime you have a custom parameter that's not part of GA4's default set of dimensions, you have to register them as custom dimensions in your property. So that's super important, especially if you're doing custom event tracking.
This feels like something like a step or two that I would normally miss. So.
Yes, so many times, and for the longest time, I did the same thing. I was sending all this custom data to GA4, and it wasn't registered, so it wasn't tracking it. It would just ignore it, and it wouldn't show up in reports. So it has to be registered. That's important.
Write that down, folks. Write that down.
Yep.
Register that data.
A powerful tool is custom audiences, and in terms of audiences, you can get crazy with setting up custom audience. So what you would normally use this for is like, I want to retarget or remarket to this person with Google Ads or something like that. But for example, you can say, I want to target people that spent more than 30 seconds on the website. They viewed more than 3 pages. They watched more than 2 videos. They triggered a custom event that I have set up, and all those things together, anybody that fits that criteria, they put them in this audience bucket. And then you can use that bucket for retargeting, remarketing, but you can also just look at that as an audience in your own reports, your canned reports, and say just this specific group of people, how did they interact with my website? So super powerful. And a lot of people don't really know about it or don't use it, but it's a great way to kind of slice and dice your website user base. And
no, I definitely have a couple clients like right now off the top of my head where I'm like, actually, we should have had that set up already, but it needs set up now, for sure.
And it's kind of a rolling thing. Audiences, people come in and they exit based on a time period, like a 30-day look back window, or within the last 30 days, how many people met this criteria. It's not like a permanent grouping.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so great for remarketing and retargeting, right? Because as people are coming in, you can send them targeted ads, and when they leave, then they're no longer part of that audience.
Them. Use those display ads. Remind them that you exist.
And there's so much more. You can do custom dashboards, custom filters, custom events, custom metrics. They really did build a lot of customizability into the platform. So which
is the nice part of GA4. It's just that you have to dig so far into it that it's like a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, it can be for sure.
Yeah. So the overall takeaway from this week, do
Mhm.
it. Just do it, Dan.
Do it.
Oh,
Get it in there. Get it start tracking.
do
It's
it.
so that guy's so creepy.
Literally just go put GA4. We don't need to talk about that, but go put GA4 on your website. It'll help you in the future. It'll help you make data-driven decisions and actually move the needle for your business.
That's right.
This has been another week of digital plumbing. And that's all.
That was a good topic. Thank you.
Woohoo! Leave it now. Love it or list it.
Thanks for joining us for a little digital plumbing. I'm Dan.
And I'm Katya. And as always, we don't have all the answers, but we love digging into the questions with you.
Be sure to follow along for new episodes each week. If you love the digital marketing world, we're keeping the conversation going on digital-plumbing.com and can't wait to hear from you.
We'll be back next week with a new episode, but until then, stay curious, stay creative, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.